Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Draw with Tea. Now, isn't this something? It's not a Christmas episode this time. Let me know if you're happy or sad about that. I know it's kind of the season when I'm posting these. But yeah, I wanted... Last year, I did not continue with my personal art when I started working with my Christmas card, and I regretted that because I was in the middle of doing... I was drawing a character 10 times, 10 head sketches, 10 upper bodies, and 10 full bodies, and I basically stalled out and stopped at like the 4th full body. So I was very nearly done the whole series, but I had to stop, and when I literally came back to redo that, I kind of forgot how to draw her, and then I, very shortly after completing that series, I literally had a moment where I had a breakthrough, and I learned how to do sketches better, and the whole character changed, and it was really awkward, I think, because then I just posted art of the character for like months, and I'm like, people must think this is it, this is all I do, I just draw this one princess. I know you guys probably think all I do is draw hippogriffs right now, because when I get focused on something, and I try and improve it, I focus in hard. I don't just do one hippogriff sketch and that's it, I'm done. There's a kind of, I go through phases of learning and applying, and then I go through phases of drawing fun art, and then I go back to learning and applying. And if you leave me to my own devices, that's what I do. If you give me a client, I will begrudgingly make them art, because even if they're an amazing client, I am very self-driven and I want to do my stuff always and forever. So yeah, random tangent there. So basically what I was trying to say there is, even though I'm working on 4 Christmas cards, which is 4 times the work I did last year, I still want to find some time to at least do a few sketches every week of my own kind of the thing I'm working on right now, which is currently trying to figure out the designs for the armor that Stormscreech, my Hippogryph character in the fantasy lesbian romance action adventure animation amazing epic, how her armor's gonna look. So this is the page that I have done after studying a little bit of horse armor. So the first drawing I did there is literally just taking the main pieces of horse armor and slapping them on a hippogriff and just seeing how that design, that historical kind of design, translates into a fantastical creature. Just for my reference to, for all I knew, wow, that would be it. That we're done. We go home. But as I figured, it doesn't quite work how I want it to work. Now, here's the thing. I'm a cartoon artist, but sometimes I think a little too realistically and analytically, and sometimes I think that's a good thing. I can add a certain amount of depth to character design that other people might not consider, like certain details, and if you can add a detail nobody thought about, that's an instant way of making some very original artwork, which might lead to a very original world, which might lead to a lot of fans, and just having a jamming old awesome time with your original work and fans that enjoy it. Or it can just, eat up your life, and then you focus on something that nobody cares about and didn't even matter to begin with, and it's a balancing act, and I never know which side of the fence I'm on. So, but you do want to consider details when you are world building, and here I thought about the differences of knights, because knights in this world are mounted on hippogriffs and griffins. I don't know if horses actually exist in this world, in the world of Kalismere. So what do you do when the nobility ride flying beasts? And especially when those beasts are known for being aggressive. They fly, that's already changing history and changing, how warfare works. Like, what do you do when your knights fly? The first thing I would do is get archers to shoot the bottom of their griffins, right? So that would usually so if I'm then the armorer working on Gryphon Armour, I'm gonna armor underneath them. So the armor suddenly can't be this sort of bell shape that it is with horses. Historically, horse armor is kind of this sort of bell shape with the base of it being flared out. There's nothing on the limbs because you want your horse to be fast, and that's that. But if horses could fly and you had archers, suddenly you got to consider the bottom. And if you have aggressive griffins that are facing off against each other, and peasants when they're on the ground, or maybe even they dogfight in the air, you probably want a more armored front as well. Maybe you have iron-tipped claws that they wear. So, they have horse shoes on the back, but then, claw, like metal-tipped gauntlets on the front. Something I thought about but didn't really draw is how you counterbalance so much front armor in the back when your creature flies. That's when I started getting to the point of how realistic do these cartoon things need to be. I think so long as it visually makes sense and it doesn't visually feel heavy or unrealistic. As unrealistic as armor on an imaginary creature in an imaginary world with an imaginary person on it can be. I think it's fine then. So like here I'm exploring the idea of griffins and hippogriffs. I'm gonna say griffin, but these are drawings of hippogriffs, and the main character or the main mount here is a hippogriff. Here I am. Basically everything blue that I draw here is meant to be armor, just because I knew my sketches would get scratchy and it'd be hard to start telling flesh from metal. So the idea is all the light blue here is armor, armored parts. And so here I'm thinking, you probably want gauntlets and a bit of metal in the front if these creatures are rearing up and engaging in battle with each other. You want the helmet. Unfortunately, I don't have my sketchbook open for the terms, and I still haven't memorized the terms. But you want the helmet to kind of have a pointed beak, so that they can strike with that. Again, because if they're striking against metal, you don't want their beak to break. You don't want the other griffin to smash their beak. But then you also have to I had a hard time with the shoulder armor because you have wings, which you don't want to impede. But if you don't have that sort of patral, that sort of shovel shape in the front, if you have it a bit more streamlined, following underneath the breastbone, you're going to need something on the shoulders. And I originally kept thinking, well, the original patral design, that front piece, is very sturdy. It's one piece. It's going to do the job, honestly. There's no way of any claws or any spear or weapon getting in between the joint of a breastplate and a shoulder piece, which is a big problem with knights and stuff. That is a point where you can get them if you're fast enough or lucky enough. But, considering that they would be charging, think of a joust match. If they're charging in, then suddenly getting a thrusted tip right into that point seems a lot more likely to happen. So I'm not happy with that design, but I do think that sketch I just did does look nice. Like, aesthetically it's nice. It has a little bit of armoring up the wing, which I'm not sure, how that works. I'd have to review that a little bit more to make it work, but it made sense to have a little bit of armoring going up the wing, just considering how violent, how much, front battle that the front of a griffin might see. Then I started thinking about they probably had two types of armor, because in my armor research of people, I learned that knights, you could have two types of plate mail. You'd have your riding plate, which is the plate that you probably haven't noticed or seen this, but if you ever see plate armor and you see the backside and there's just nothing on the back of the shins, nothing on the back of the thighs, and the whole butt is open, and you're like, how is that protective? Why is that? That's riding armor. The idea is the knight sits their butt on their horse, and guess what? If your butt is on a horse, there is no way anybody can stab your butt unless they somehow stab through a whole horse, which is not really going to happen. You don't want to wear metal on your butt when you're on a horse, because that's very slippery, uncomfortable, and, just pointless. But there is another kind of armor called foot armor or field armor, and that's where you're not on a horse. You got to keep in mind knights were often on horses because that was, the latest thing, the latest, greatest technology of the time. Why would you not be on something that makes you faster, more maneuverable, and, higher up of a target? I'm sure there would be actual reasons. I know there's a pedantic person, at least me in the audience, who, can be like, well, actually, there would be reasons. But generally, a horse is an upgrade. But if you had to go into the field without a horse, then yeah, there is a separate kind of style of armor that does have armoring on the back of the legs and the buttocks area, shall we say. So again, when it came to griffins, I was thinking about that. What does flying plate look like compared to land plate? And I felt like land plate would look a lot like classic horse armor, because you don't waste metal on the underside of a bird if that bird ain't gonna fly, right? But then I started thinking about, well, why would you have a flying animal that would be grounded? What reason would that be? And that I couldn't really answer, so I kind of stopped with the riding plate idea. I mean, I guess in a way it could be just a poor man's armoring, or a poor man's barding, because that's kind of what they call horse armor, barding. So yeah, I kind of kept with the flying plate idea, which, and I guess the variation could be that if, if one person, one knight or whatever is more aerial, then the underside of the armor would be much more robust than the rest of it. And a knight that took more to the ground or low flying battle would have lighter, just maybe chainmail under the underbelly of his or her griffin, and more heavier plates, around the top and the sides. Yeah, here I am just sketching some ideas now. I've, did some of the big things, so now I'm just doing small things, trying to figure out where the saddle would fit in between these plates. Because, again, here, I'll show you guys a little zoom up of this page first. But, again, something people forget is on a mount, on a horse, there is a saddle. And the reason it's, when I looked at horse armor, it was actually hard to find any sort of armoring on the actual belly, like the side of the belly and the ribs, and I thought that was weird. I thought it was weird until I saw a knight, what is it? It's not a statue, a model, like a life-size model, a wax figure of a knight, a suit of armor on a suit of armored plastic big horse. Then it all made sense to me. The knight is sitting there all across the flanks, not the flanks, the stomach pieces of the horse. And that, like, the armored legs of the knight are protecting that part of the horse. And it's like, oh, okay, that's something I probably wouldn't have thought about if I was doing this from scratch without looking at reference. I would have just been like, well, I gotta put armor here, and I wouldn't have figured that out until much later when I was finally drawing Tristan on top of, or on the back of her beloved Hippogryph steed, Storm Screech, and I would have been like, oh, this doesn't make much sense. Yeah, so this is a 2-page special today, so here I'm moving on to the next page. And this is kind of, even though I hadn't quite worked out all the anatomical details of how general Gryphon armor would work in the previous page, I decided just to kind of jump in and have fun with how Storm Screech's specific quote-unquote rusty armor would look. She's going to get 2 armor designs. She's going to get a crappier one that kind of looks secondhand, like, basically mismatched pieces bought and, fit together. They're rusty, they're old, and then she's gonna have a beautiful magical suit of armor, kind of in that kind of He-Man, She-Ra style, where, they raise the sword and they're like, by the power of blah blah blah, and, magic, bam, transformation, but not quite the same. I mean, obviously, if this was just He-Man or She-Ra redone, I would just say so, but that's kind of the idea. There's a rusty old suit of armor that Tristan and Storm adventure in, and, when the time comes, they have the magical power to summon this magical, cool armor that's way better, but, limited in some capacity. But yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out the head drawing, and right around here, there's going to be a weird jump cut. I basically got some news that I had to hurry it up really fast because some plans had changed and stuff. So unfortunately, the quality starts to fall off with this page, which is really unfortunate. I was so in my groove, but life happens, right? You gotta attend to life stuff. But at least I got to finish this up, and I didn't have to come back at like 2 a.m. after a work shift and do it to, get this episode out with the other ones. But yeah, so here now, the thing is, when I don't have time but I still have to fill a page, my whole mindset changes. Sometimes that's for the worst, sometimes I just scribble out art. It doesn't make sense, I haven't thought it fully through, and I change my mind halfway through, even though that's pretty fast because these things take, little to no time. But sometimes it can be good. Sometimes when you're rushed, you have to spit out any and all ideas just to fill the page, and sometimes you spit out those ideas you think aren't so great, or you just happen in your rushed execution to make a very bold stroke, a line that you wouldn't have considered otherwise because maybe you wouldn't have been so brave, but right now you don't care about quality, you just need to fill it up. I don't really know if that happened so much here. I did do some interesting doodles, and I'm quite proud at the quote-unquote strength of these. By that I mean, go back and watch episode 4, where I'm trying to draw Gryphon Armour for the first time, and I was doing it while looking at Pinterest, looking at everything from, people having done beautiful leather horse masks, and historic horse armor, and fantasy horse armor, and a couple fantasy Gryphon armors. All of this just in my head, and I had like 20 or 30 minutes to draw something phenomenal and impressive, and I knew it wasn't going to happen, but the end result was just so poor, and I understood so little that was the start where I realized I needed to go back and explore everything that I've explored in previous episodes. Horses, cats, birds, bird wings, griffins, horse armor, all of that to get to this point right here. So, I get a lot of people, a lot of kids, and just people in general like, wow, you're so talented, it must be amazing, and I thank them, like, thank you very much, but, this is hard work. Nobody understands that, right? Unless you do this too, nobody really understands. This takes years. I've been doing this 15 years, right? This isn't something I woke up one day at age 5 and I could just do, and I've been doing it ever since. This is, to get to just this point, these doodles, these sketches took probably, 10, 20 pages, many episodes. What episode is this? Episode 36? 32 episodes. Well, maybe not all 32 episodes, because I am doing Christmas cards on top of this, but, just to give you guys an idea, if you're stressed out or frustrated that your designs aren't coming along, you believe you can't draw this, you just believe you're not talented in drawing whatever, just take a deep breath, put the effort in. You just gotta do 100 pages of it. You'll at least be somewhat decent after that, because unfortunately it is art. To become a master, we're not looking at 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 pages. We're looking at like 100,000 pages. I haven't put in 100,000 pages yet, so I'm not quite a master yet. But the good news with art, you can get better. You just at least you can put in the volume. You can't always control the quality. You can't control your learning speed. But the more you draw, the faster, the closer you get to your final, that point you want to be at. So whether you're a slow learner or a fast learner, you put in the time, you're going to get there eventually, right? Yeah, that was maybe a bit of a random tangent. But yeah, so here I am. Now I'm focusing a bit on the gauntlet designs of the hippogriffs. And again, I was thinking about what if they have gauntlets and they do as much damage as their knights in battle. Maybe knights actually don't. Maybe knights don't fight as much in this world as they used to. Maybe they're more like handlers that just keep their griffin in check and just assist them as griffins, fight other griffins, or they, do quite a bit of damage to peasants or whatever. But, it's also a world with magic. So, magic changes everything. And this is probably the final doodle. This is the funnest one. This is literally just me grabbing the design for Tristan's armor, and I'm just shove it on Storm Screech here. And Tristan's armor has this sort of big poofy feather, and I just wanted to draw Storm Screech looking so proud of this armor and this feather, even though she wouldn't actually be, I don't think. But yeah, it was just something I had to draw. I don't know why. Sometimes you just get compelled to draw things. And yeah, thanks guys for watching. Hope to see you in the next episode. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll probably be going to more Christmas stuff after this. But yeah, have a nice day.